Great. Hi guys, hi everyone. We are having today a live session of Product Madness category. Tali is here to represent the team from Product Madness. She's gonna look at the games that are competing in this category, and she's gonna give a lot of good feedback for you guys to know what to do with your games. And for those who aren't in this category, there is still time for you to put your game if you think that it's something that is like what we are aiming here in this category, like a good game, a fun game about chance and randomness and a lot of playing with dice and cards and stuff like that. So if you have something that in common with this category, please look at these games, look at what Tali has to say, and contact me, Alberto, on the Discord so we can talk more about your game and your insertion in this category. Okay, I'm gonna let Tali present herself for you guys, and she's gonna start with the games. Yeah. Have a nice session, everyone.
Thank you so much, Alberto, and welcome, folks. I'm glad to see one familiar name, but more new people. I actually prepared a few slides for you, so I'm going to share my screen in a moment. So just to get us started. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Wonderful. Great. So, who am I? So my name is Tali Zuckerman. I'm the director of Madness Ventures, which is a part of Product Madness. And Product Madness, just to give you a glance, a short intro to who we are. Well, we've been around since 2007, so quite some time. We have over 800 employees in 6 global offices. Our headquarters is here in London, where I'm located, but we also have offices in, I'm going to get that right, Israel, Ukraine, Poland, Barcelona, US, and Canada. The best things about us, so you can see those 2 numbers in the middle, we've got 6 live games right now. They are all in specific category, which is casual casino. We are top 25 publisher globally, specifically in that category. We have been the #1 for quite some time with our 6 titles. And this is kind of the reason that we are sponsoring this particular category of games of chance and luck. Basically because that's what we do. All of the success of our games come from the fact that our experience, our expertise now is in making games of chance super engaging, very retaining, and very, very monetizing. We make them very successful. And with that kind of concept of where we're in a very privileged position, very lucky to have this great successes in the market. In the last summer, we decided to actually start helping entrepreneurs and teams like yourself, sometimes more experienced, to help build their dream games in that area of our expertise. And that's when we've established Madness Ventures. So that's the program I am running. I put a link here on the bottom for you in case you'd like to learn more. And very similar to our partnership with GameJamPlus, which we are very excited to be in, we are looking for these games of chance. Madness Ventures is a specific closed program, so feel free to read some more and see if that's of interest to you. But we're also very passionate about generally helping young teams, mature teams, think through their games and basically find a way to make innovative, scalable games where we can add value through that element of chance. And that's the story of our sponsorship of this category. For today, just as Alberto pointed out, I'm going to start with a feedback session. It is not very detailed, and it takes a slightly different perspective, I believe, to the type of work that you are doing in the Game Jam incubator phase, the incubation that you are going through right now. So I won't be looking at any detailed elements or not talk at all about UX and things like that, but rather take the step back approach. What can this game do? What can this game achieve? How should you think about your next steps in order to make this game a success? So that's the focus of my feedback. We'll go through the three concepts that Alberto has suggested for me to look at. I'm going to go through them in sequence. Alex is here, so Alex, if you don't mind, I'll ask you to introduce your game when the time comes, and I just talk about the feedback. And I want to leave really a lot of time for your questions. So we've got about 45 minutes for now, so we'll get through the feedback, then floor is yours for questions, and I'll just wrap up with a few what's next steps for you. Does that sound all right, everyone? I can take thumbs up everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, sounds good. Great. So the feedback session. So there are three games that Alberto has shortlisted for me to talk about. We're going to start with the trivia battle game because Alex is here. If I can put you on the spot to introduce your game, is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
I can press the link if you wish.
Yeah, you can do it. Actually, the itch.io page is very ugly. You go, but actually there's some screenshots that you can see there. Basically, my game is about battles your enemies with dice. The objective here is to beat your enemy in taking the dice and having a higher amount on the result of the dice. You can increase your sum by answering some questions, some trivia questions, and those questions, if you answer it correctly, you can have like a reward that will increase the number of your dice, or will give you an extra effect. I don't know, maybe to gain more HP, or I don't know, maybe freeze the other player, or other kind of random effects. So basically, that's the main gameplay on this game.
I agree. That's a good summary. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So there are a few, as I talk about the feedback, I probably should have started with that. There are several main pillars that I assess the games on, and there are assessment criteria, if you will. And I'm going to repeat them for the games wherever it's possible. And actually, Alex's game is a really good example. So I'm going to start from the beginning. And the first one is core loop, and to what extent it is driven by an element of chance. And to that, I would say two very important things. First of all, the core loop here in that dice-driven battle, very simple. clear, simple. That's what you want. The second thing, of course, is it is driven by a dice. Hence, it is controlled by randomness, which means, of course, it qualifies for our category. What I thought was quite innovative and interesting was that added element of the trivia. It doesn't drive the game, it doesn't drive the core loop, but it is additive to the core loop. So the core loop, if you were to describe it on a chart, is always driven by more and more dice rolls. So that means the gameplay, the minute-to-minute experience of the battle is driven by an element of luck, an element of chance. That's what we want to see. The only point I would say on core loop with element of chance, and again, that's quite general, is that you really need to be mindful about kind of replayability. And here it's actually in two aspects. So one is on the core loop and making the battles something I want to do for 10 minutes, for half hour, for 2 days, for a week, for a month, etc. And the second thing, because of the trivia element, is to make sure that we get the mindset correctly, and we don't, there's something about trivia that runs the risk of getting players mentally tired. So it is important to see, as this game develops, that we are able to balance that chilled out element of just a dice roll and the more mentally taxing element of the trivia. This is my first comment around core loop and element of chance. The second area I'm going to look at is progression and links to the meta. So the meta, you probably know this from your own discussions, everything around the minute-to-minute gameplay that drives me to continue to play, to engage further, to deepen the engagement and hence retention, and create those later opportunities for monetization. With this game, I absolutely loved the progression model, again, because it is simple. And the second thing is because it did one of the most important things you can design for in a meta progression loop, and that is it's meaningful. Why? Because if you progress through the levels of this game, the more battles that you win, this level progression actually alters your core gameplay. What does that mean? It means you need to play a different type of dice. You also change your meta progression because you play another type of battle. So the core element of the dice changes, and also the meta element of the levels and who you fight also changes. So this progression happens in sequence. There's no detachment. It's really coherent. It's very, very well done. And I already told Alex that I really appreciated it. What else? What I also see here, beyond this simple thing that you've done for a game jam very quickly and very well done, there's a lot of future potential. And in Madness Ventures in general, when we look at games done by very experienced teams too, we don't always see that. And here I do see, I can dream up much more depth into that meta, and I love seeing that in games, and players love seeing that in games. So well done on that as well. And then a third element I always look at is actually audience. And I think this is kind of a challenge many of us have when we design games. We kind of like to design games for us. But the important thing is to design games that many people would love, of course, assuming you would like a successful game in the market. And to help you really design this game for success, you have to think back about your audience, who they are, what are they playing now, what will they be replacing when they play your game, and quite deeply, what are these emotional needs that are being served by the types of games that they're playing today. And it's really interesting with this game because, again, that balance that I mentioned between the chilled out game of chance driven by the dice and the more intense element of the trivia. So you would need to really think about these audiences. Are they different? Are they the same people, but in a different frame of mind? And are we actually, can we think about a frame of mind for players to be in where they would want this intense, mentally challenging experience that is also occasionally made chilled out by luck? Or the other way around, if we want the players that like to engage in games of chance, but they really love the opportunity to have some agency in the game, to have a strategy, to express their skill, to express their knowledge. I think the answer to that is yes, and I see a lot of indication to how that happens. So again, I would urge you to think through your audience very methodically. But in this case, I see quite a good opportunity. The way I would present it or pitch it, if you want to advance your game into later stages, and I believe this is also part of the accelerator part of GameJamPlus, I would suggest to create kind of a map of competitor apps. Even if there's no direct competitor, just map out kind of adjacent competitors, those games you will push out because everyone loves your game. What do you deliver that they don't? What are they good at? What type of gap in the market are you able to kind of find? And that would help you both articulate your unique position in the market, but also later on, when you're trying to market this game, it would help you articulate your marketing message better, both in terms of what you're going to say, but also who you're going to talk to. And that's really valuable once you're out of the game jam and into the real world. So that's kind of an advice to you in that space of an audience. And another element I was judging kind of games on was innovation. And in this particular case, I thought that mix of chance and trivia is really cool. It is worth doing research for some similar concepts and just to interrogate that you have an understanding of what drives their success or what drives the failures. That's going to be key for next steps as well. There are also some future considerations. I think some of them I already told you on office hours earlier this week. First of all, there is, I noted 5 for myself as I was reviewing this concept. The first one is around content challenge, which is specifically around the trivia content requirements, as well as kind of additional drives for that progression, what makes it more exciting. So an example, which is really classic both in games of chance and in trivia games, is some sort of social pursuit, right? This could be a path to forward progression. The second element was the monetization of the game. Again, we spoke about this in office hours, and Alex's answer was essentially monetized like a casual game with casual game mechanics. And I think what you would want to consider as you go into the acceleration stage soon is, can you push it a bit further? Maybe not, but can you make the most of that dice and the speed in which it goes to help you aspire to casual casino or even social casino monetization, which is much stronger and more effective than casual games. So that would be my steer on that element. The third question, which is I've already mentioned before, really looking back at the competition, and not direct competition necessarily, but those games you will replace in your audience's mind. We spoke about that already. And to a more practical point around KPIs, given that competitive set that you've defined, what would be some of the KPIs that you will look for when you launch this into a market test or even later on? What would you think about, and how can you set yourself with a dollar figure, a revenue target that would keep you kind of motivated and help you take those steps to make a successful game? My last but not least is number 5, and that one comes from the job I do every day in Madness Ventures, and that is testing early prototypes. And again, we look back to think, with just that early prototype, when we launch it into the market, what do we need to think about? And most of the time, we would launch a prototype that has enough play in it for D1 retention. Absolutely nothing more. But it's critical for us to find correct benchmarks for that day 1 retention, to identify how long should we expect the session to last, or the first day playtime to last. And again, we would go back to that competitive set that we've identified, try to get indications for similar games and maybe slightly different games to make sure that we understand from the very first prototype test, have we got an engaging core loop that people respond to? So I would challenge you for the acceleration stage to have a think about what these KPIs should be for you if you want to test your prototype in the market, and be very deliberate in setting goals for these KPIs, building the scope to just hit these KPIs in your first test, and being very honest on the results, because they will tell you, have I got something? Have I not got anything? Or maybe I'm close, which is a very dangerous answer, but that's another topic. That was all of my feedback for this session. So again, as I said, I'm judging the games on 4 criteria on core loop, element of chance, meta progression, audience, and innovation. And then what I try to do is also give some advice towards the acceleration stage. And this is probably the game I will have spoken most about. Any kind of immediate questions? What I'd suggest to do is if you can put them in the chat, and then we can do all the questions in the end, if that's okay. Great. So I'm going to move to the second game here, which is actually the first one. I don't know if anyone from the team is here. If not, I can click on the link and just show you a bit of the game. Okay. So there's a video here, but also we can run the game a little bit here. So this is my understanding and interpretation. I should be honest, there's a video here which explains a bit more, but it's in Portuguese, so I do struggle. I know nothing in Portuguese. So I'll just show you a bit of the gameplay here. So the description of this game, the adventure book, is live again with the excitement of having your life set by the dice roll. Great start. Play this fast-paced multi-platform game where you, the adventurer, try to crawl out of the dungeon. And it's got very nice controls that quite appropriate for mobile. Up to progress, attack, move forward, right and left would just move to another rooms. And this is how this looks like. Hope this starts. Yeah, there we go. I'm just going to play just a couple of levels. There you go. We get started here. Don't know how to make this white. Roll my stats. Okay. Bit of a story on the side, bit of a narrative. Okay. So I can attack the monster or escape either direction. I'm going to attack. That goes very well. Actually don't understand this element, but I'm sure the team can explain. Oh no. Powerful enemy to start with. Even just one. There we go. So I can move to another room. So there's a monster in front of my room. I'm just going to show you there's also a way to escape. I can move to another room. Pretty much. Just doors. Okay. It actually continues this way. So I'm going to stop this now. Okay. So let's look at my feedback for the adventure book. And again, it's very nicely well done. Hard for me to see, this is great work to be doing in such a short span of time. So the team, they're not here, but kudos to them for completing this. I come back to the same criteria that I was observing before. So first of all, the core loop and the element of chance. Again, we are looking at a really clean and simple core loop and the dice determining the result of a battle against the monster. Similar type of core loop. They're both really nice and simple and clean. I can sketch them on a board in 2 minutes. Very good. What I would consider here is the replayability, and I see that as kind of a big warning, because it actually repeats itself quite a bit. So I've shown you a few rooms and they're always roughly the same. You have this battle, there's a slightly different monster. What I would challenge the team in this case is to really think deeply what would make this core loop with a dice roll really replayable. So can you play this now? 10 minutes, half hour, week, so on. You want players to engage in the long run. So that would be something to consider later on. Now, the second criteria that I mentioned before was around progression and meta. Now, here is a different aspect to what we've saw in Alex's example on the trivia battle, because at least in the levels that I've managed to complete, and I've played I think more than 10 rooms here, there was nice progression between the different rooms. I had, a different monster every time, a chest sometimes that I needed to open. The great thing about it is that it's really intuitive. I know this from 1,000 other games. All players know this type of progression from everything they do. So it's quite intuitive. However, the challenge here is what makes me feel that I've progressed, that I've achieved. What is really kind of a narrative that drives me to continue exploring these different rooms? Have I got a goal? What's the reason to attack those different monsters? It was hard to connect to the why in this game, and it could be because it is an early stage game. But again, even in early stage games, we want to be able to see that the core loop is engaging, and it can be very nicely amplified by the meta around it. The other thing that was lacking to me, and I mentioned it in opposite to the previous game, was the connection between progression in the meta and the core gameplay. What do I mean by that? Here, it's very easy to see that you progress in the meta. I defeat a monster, I go to another room. Nothing ever changed in my core gameplay. The dice was the same dice. Again, this could be something that the team is still working on because it's early stage, but right now there was no feedback loop between the meta progression and the core progression, and that's something to consider later on. The third criteria that I was talking about in the previous game as well was an audience. It's really important here as well because this game is a pretty cool cross between RPG, dungeon crawler type game, but with that element of chance fed into it. And there's a really important underlying question on who is this audience? So are these kind of RPG players that are also players of games of chance? Maybe. There are many examples here, but it really, in order to prove this game in the market, to make it a success, you need to prove that first there is an audience. There are people who have got these ambitions to play a kind of a dungeon crawler game, but also be very much influenced by a dice. So proving that they exist, and also taking a deep look at their motivations, so that you understand that how, or that you design, maybe is a better word, so that you design the game to address their motivations, their needs, the value that they get out of their playtime. And the last point I was looking at was innovation. And that one for me was mostly a question. So if we're addressing this from the point of view of the RPG audience, what innovation does this game bring? Is the dice enough for them? Is it fresh enough? Is it innovative enough? Is it a new enough experience for them to put aside the games they've invested so much time in and go to your game. If it's on the flip side, if it's for the players of games of chance, would they, for them, it's probably fairly innovative concept, but you need to really ask yourself if they're after such a kind of a heavy narrative format. Maybe yes, maybe no, but that requires a bit of testing, and I would say also some kind of research to prove. In terms of future considerations, I'm just going to try and accelerate a bit because I'm mindful of time. Again, the question on monetization. I haven't spoken to this team, so I don't know their plan, but it is really important to see if you can leverage the power of the dice to push monetization. The questions on competitors and their link to the audience, which we've discussed, is really critical here. And then the KPIs, both in terms of the ambition, who we're trying to take off the charts, and then if you curl it back to those early prototypes, what do you need to be chasing? What needs to be your target to prove that the core loop is indeed engaging? Is it D1? Is it session time? What are the right benchmarks to make that point? That's my feedback for the adventure book so far. So again, if you can write your questions in the chat, I'll do them very quickly. Dodge Circle is a very different game to the ones we just saw. I'm going to give it a moment to load here. And I think I can just play the video. I think we got it. Okay. So this one, last but not least, but very different. It is actually more like a hyper casual game. So naturally, much simpler than the other two games you've seen. However, when I am assessing it versus the other two games, based on those high-level criteria that I've explained, it's actually much harder to do. In particular, because in that first element of the core loop and the element of chance, well, the perceived skill of tapping around that circle in order to dodge the obstacles, that's what drives the game. It's not as much about where the obstacles are, which is the element of chance, but rather about me as the player having a lot of agency, to be honest, because I think that it's my skill that helps me dodge them in whatever way they would be thrown at me. So in that sense, it's a fun, hyper casual game, probably one that I would personally play. But I would say that it is less similar to the types of games that we look at in this category, because it's not driven, that's the operative word here. It's not driven by chance. It's driven by the perceived skill I have to fight chance in a way. And again, if I kind of think to the other kind of advice for the future, it would again think about hyper casual and that potential that we find in the simple minimalistic style of games, but at the same time the monetization would probably not enjoy in a way the same benefits of the casual casino and the social casino elements, but rather be more, as it is traditional, slightly more driven or much more driven by ads. So this game was a bit of a different one within the luck category. So that's my feedback for the three games, and I can take questions now if you got more, but I can get started with the additional ones that we've got. Okay, let's see.
I have a question, Tali.
Yes.
Does this last game, the dodge circle dodge, I chose it to this presentation just because it's a well done game. I like this game a lot when I played on our list for the category. But yeah, I knew it wasn't a luck game or a dice game or a randomness game. So I put it on the list because I wouldn't bring this question about, okay, for one of those people who are here watching us talking about these games that are interested in this category, how can you toy with this game and toy with this game design to bring it more on this core loop about luck and chance and stuff like that?
That's a really interesting question. Yeah. So, well, the simple answer is that you'll need a different core loop, because this one is driven by the perceived skill. Your ability to dodge when you're flipping with your finger, that's what drives your progression in the game. It's not the obstacles around you. So in a way, if you want to start from that, it's actually harder to do, because it may feel a bit forced. And I have about 1,000 examples for games that were kind of fudged, I would say, fudged to include an element of chance, and that really does not work. It just doesn't work. You actually need to think about a core loop where the action is to trigger luck. You expect to see what the outcome of your luck is, and you don't think that it's your skill, because it's perceived skill, right? There's no doubt about it. It's just perceived skill, which is also true for Match 3 and Blast games. We don't generally think about them as games that are driven by an element of chance, even though there is a ton of randomness in this game. But they're not driven by it. They are driven by my skillful abilities to match 3 tiles. And that's the big difference. So I would say it's not about tweaking a core loop, it's about a rethink.
Okay,
unfortunately.
Great. Thanks. Anyone else have a question about the games we were talked about, or about the category, about what we are doing here, what we are going to do this next few days? Okay. Okay, you can
Okay.
finish your presentation then, Tali, and I'm gonna have a few words in the final, but
no problem. I think just to give you an idea on a few things that are next up. So first of all, as Alberto, you've just pointed out, if your game might be suitable for the category, please join in. There's still time, great prizes, and we would love to meet you. So please go ahead and join. If you are already in the category or you're joining, we decided to get to know you better by actually hosting weekly office hours with myself and my colleagues at Product Madness. It's actually specifically the Madness Ventures team. And we've set them on Fridays. They're different times throughout the day, so we can accommodate wherever you are globally. I think Alberto would have the schedule for you. So if you've got any questions, please prepare them and come enjoy the office hours. It's kind of like university office hours, but it's a chance to talk to us and get some advice, and we can probably put you in touch with more people if that helps. And then the last thing is, if you just want to learn more about the Madness Ventures program that I started with, because that's my program, feel free to check it out. You can go to madnessventures.com or get there through the Product Madness website. And that is it. Thank you. Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Alberto, for putting up the office hours. They are all here on the chat in UK time, but then you can translate it to your own times.
Yeah, well, that's it. Thank you very much, Tali, for your time, for your feedback about the games, and to bring this to us. And
my pleasure.
Thank you very much, everyone that showed up. We recorded this session. We're gonna put it on our YouTube for the teams that couldn't get here because of the time or any other issue. But please contact us for if you are interested in this category, and the teams who are in the category, contact us so we can bring you to the official sessions. And any other concern, any other issue, any other question, any other whatever you have to know about this category, please contact me. We are gonna talk through. I'm gonna watch our games. I'm gonna watch our presentation, and we're gonna finesse your game for this category so you can compete with the other teams. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, and I think.
Thank you so much. Have a good weekend. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Bye-bye.
Bye.